Hey everybody, welcome on back. It's the Rubbin is Racing podcast. It's myself, it's Quigs, it's Spider, it's Manoli, and it's Moonhead. And we're here today. Pretty big day. Got a ton of shit to talk to, and the only reason we're here today is because of Cabo Wabo Tequila. It's presented by Cabo Wabo. Cabo Wabo is unquestionably Mexican tequila with an undeniably American attitude. It isn't just tequila; it's damn good, thick cut, 100% Blue Weber agave tequila. Cabo Wabo Tequila is the official tequila partner of NASCAR, and you can add a bold splash to any race day by watching alongside some Cabo Wabo Tequila. If you're heading to a race this weekend, come celebrate race day with Cabo Wabo. And Cabo Wabo wants to remind you to leave the driving to the professionals, and please enjoy the thick-cut, bold taste of Cabo Wabo Tequila responsibly. So grab your buds and a bottle of Cabo Wabo Tequila for the boldest race day experience. You got to be 21 years or older, and you need to handle this stuff responsibly. It's delicious, but you need to be 21 years or older to taste that deliciousness. Boys, welcome back. How's everything going?
Good. Fantastic. How you doing?
Spider, I just got through with you in Charlotte. We had a hell of a time. How'd you get home? No problems?
Yeah, no problem. Smooth getting back. I was on the same flight as Chaps and Kate. And unfortunately, we left without seeing the full race, but still a good time in Charlotte nonetheless.
Even the piece of shit airlines that I was flying didn't cancel the flight because of the humidity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a second. Headlines. I know you guys are into the Indy 500. I didn't watch a absolute second of it while I was down in Charlotte. Indy 500 started announcing a new tradition. They're giving all their guys jackets, sort of like they do with the Masters. But the jackets are navy blue blazers. They don't look like anything. Did you see these fucking things? They all sit there. They all look like they were going to like a lacrosse dinner. So I don't know. But
it's hard to start a tradition.
Yeah, I think Indy 500's got some cool enough traditions going on with the milk and everything and kissing the bricks. I don't know that they need to be adding anything else in. I enjoyed the race. I wish Larson wasn't penalized there at the end, but overall, exciting Indy 500.
But you want to, I don't know, like gold jackets for the Hall of Fame, green jackets for the Masters, maybe, I don't know, throw something up that's a little bit exciting. That's my personal opinion.
Can't steal somebody else's color, though.
No, but I'm saying, so Indy 500, throw up a fucking white jacket because of the milk thing. You know what I mean? I don't know.
White jacket would play.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the blue jacket just kind of looks like you're going to a fucking communion. Fines. NASCAR announced today they officially penalized Austin Hill for his actions while racing fellow driver Cole Custer in last weekend's NASCAR Xfinity Series events. Austin Hill was fined $25,000, was docked 25 points in the driver standings under Section 4.4B in the NASCAR rulebook. What I think is interesting, the point penalty knocks Hill out of the lead in the Xfinity standings, dropping him to third place behind the new leader, Chandler Smith, and behind the guy that he had fucking ran into, Cole Custer. 25 grand and 25 points. You guys think that's fair? You had seen what had happened. It was, during the race, obviously, and Austin Hill had obviously ran right into our boy Cole Custer. Do you think it was enough? Do you think it was too much? What do you think about this fine that just was announced?
We set the precedent last week of just fining ridiculous, ludicrous, unprecedented amounts. So I almost think that this is too light. Austin Hill should probably be facing a prison sentence for what occurred. And I also, in that breath, I think it's a bad move from how is Ricky Stenhouse's team not appealing this penalty? I mean, everyone pretty much universally agreed that it was, like, pretty harsh. Chase Elliott's reaction was incredible. And I don't know. For them to just kind of take it and move on, that doesn't make sense to me. I would have appealed that.
It's always going to be less, right, in Xfinity, so the 75 versus 25K. And then, obviously, the driver points, I think, probably hurts even more. But, yeah, seeing Chase's reaction when he was up, doing some sort of press, he's like, wait a sec, 75K? Really? I didn't read that. So, but that's another thing that hit. They were going back and forth, but the latest is that JTG Doherty will not appeal the fine. They said this guy, Gordon Smith, the team owner, said it feels it's best to put the situation behind us and move on. So it looks like we're done with the Ricky Stenhouse versus Kyle Busch altercation. There was no any kind of revenge done in Charlotte this week, or maybe he was planning to do it at the end of the race. And
you can appeal without revenge. You know what I'm saying? I
think it's worthwhile. I think it's worthwhile to appeal.
Yeah, I don't think an appeal would have, like this guy said, put the situation behind us and move on. An appeal is not like the opposite of that. I don't think so. I think you're fighting for your innocence.
Yeah, and it's a lot of dough.
Yeah.
I mean, 75 grand is a little bit of a haircut there. Another headline, SiriusXM signs exclusive podcast agreement with Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s Dirty Mo Media. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is making a ton of dough, huh?
I love it.
I mean, we saw what, the announcement with him going over and doing these races with Amazon and whatnot. And then this looks like it's going to be a pretty lucrative contract. Nothing's going to change because, Sirius, we've had our Sirius channel once before here at Barstool, and they're pretty down to fuck with bad language and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's going to change the quality of anything that Dale is putting out. But I'm just happy. And I just want to remind everybody that there was a small place in time where the number 2 most listened to morning talk show on Sirius, the number 2 non-sport morning talk show, Drive Time, it was only behind Howard Stern on the Sirius dial, was Barstool Breakfast.
Yeah,
I hosted that. Spider and I have a very good working relationship where we finish each other's sentences right by now. Quig shows up, but nobody gives a fuck, right? And then I think Moonhead and Manoli, we can cut them loose in a heartbeat. So if Sirius wants to come after us, they only got to pay 2 fucking guys. And with that bag, we will leave this place in a heartbeat. Correct, Spider?
Either myself
yes or no, Spider?
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
myself or Dale Jr. or a combination of all of us should just try to keep doing these one-off business deals to get our net worth up all the way so we can acquire the 4th charter that Stuart Haas is selling. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. But
100%, we're going to get to it in 2 seconds.
I'm pro all these business deals that Dale Jr. is going to do. Get that bag from Amazon. Get it from SiriusXM. Get the trademarks and the licensing rights back for the 8 car and the font. He's crushing it right now. And not only was he a great driver and a great ambassador for the sport, but he appears and seemingly is a great businessman too. So I'm rooting for him. And hopefully he will come to a time in his financial existence where the entry point for owning a Cup Series team is not too much of a burden. Not to call him a broke boy right now, but
no,
he has been adamant about the fact that it is a pretty large stepping stone to get involved at the Cup Series.
Are you going to have to pay to listen to his podcast now? Like, if it was Sirius, like live radio, you have to pay that subscription.
That's a good question.
So I believe the answer is no. Just because I had seen that when Corey had moved over, and so Corey LaJoy does Stacking Pennies, and you can catch that for free on all podcasts. I don't know why you would. This is so much better. But Corey now is broadcast every Tuesday, also on SiriusXM on the NASCAR channel. And I remember when we were doing like Twisted History, still doing Twisted History, just did Twisted History of Horses last week, and it was fascinating. The average stallion has anywhere from a 14 to a 24-inch cock. If you want to learn more about that, listen to Twisted History of Horses. And the average ejaculate is almost 2 cups. Either way, when Twisted History was going on to Sirius on the Barstool channel, it didn't add anything either. It's just another platform for these guys to get already subscribers just to listen to their shit. So
yeah, I think they probably have a free podcast network you can listen to, and then they also play the pods on their NASCAR channel.
Yeah. Because if you're paying $9.99 a month to listen to fucking Freddie Kraft, you should shoot yourself in the face. I'm good friends with Freddie. Something else that bugged me. Indy 500 doing the stupid jackets. Shane Van Gisbergen will be the spotter on Will Brown's crew at Sonoma next month. Brown is a 25-year-old from Toowoomba, New Zealand, which sounds fucking made up. He replaced Van Gisbergen at the 888 in Supercars, and he's set to make his NASCAR debut for Richard Childress Racing on June 9th. So he'll have a familiar face on his side, with Van Gisbergen poised to take the secondary spot role for Brown alongside the team's primary sponsor. This is the plan, guys. Right? I told you. They're coming over here. They're going to take our fucking women. Now he's getting the benefit of having another Kiwi spotting firm and shit. It's the slow plan. I don't fucking like it. I don't like it. I know we had SVG on. He was very great. But this is the beginning of the fucking end for us. The United States is not at a peak. It's in a trough right now, I believe. And people like New-Zealanders see that. They're hackers and whatever the fuck else they do, and they're trying to take advantage of us by infiltrating our sports, and it started with NASCAR, and I just don't fucking like it. And the biggest news of the week, obviously, is SHR to close operations at the end of the 24 season. They have 4 Cup drivers, 2 Xfinity drivers, and over 300 employees. I've been part of stuff when companies have dissolved. This sucks. And I think the way that NASCAR has covered this is that every single person that's commented on it that has a real voice in NASCAR, not some fucking mouth breather who's still complaining about the lack of tire fall off or horsepower, they've made it known that there are 300 people involved with this outside of the drivers. And, you know, even though, I don't know, we're going to talk about it, how confident you guys are, each specific driver finding a place to land and maybe where you think they'll land. But the 300 people who are in those offices will not land, unfortunately, and that's a fucking shame. So I don't think anyone's to blame for this. People who own companies can dissolve them when they just don't feel like doing it anymore, or if they have greater reasons. And Stewart-Haas has had a couple of things that created this perfect storm. You know, their treatment from Ford, or at least their spot on the priority list for Ford, losing some sponsors, big fucking boys that they've lost, losing some drivers, obviously with Kevin Harvick stepping away. It's shocking news. And Harvick's quote, that it was, what was his quote again? He said
they went for forever to forward to for sale in 6 months.
What a fucking quote that is.
It's a bar.
Right? That is a fucking bar.
I respect
Mark
Kevin.
Probably singing that in the shower. Go ahead.
I respect Kevin Harvick because over the course of the last couple weeks, you could tell that his frustration with SHR was kind of growing, and he was kind of using the broadcast platform, which to kind of take jabs at them. It felt like, especially with this one, which I don't know. It seemed a little bit like maybe don't do that, but at the same time, fuck that. Use your platform to speak for what's right. And Kevin Harvick has a personal relationship with a lot of these employees that's jobs are going to be impacted, I'm sure. So to see him go to bat for not only the drivers, but the people that he worked with, I think is pretty, telling. And like you said, Large, it's an overall unfortunate situation for everyone involved. I am confident the dust will settle in a good spot for a lot of these guys.
He hasn't been shy, surprisingly, right? I mean, not that I think that Kevin would be shy. He's certainly more demure on the telecast than he is on his podcast. But even when somebody said, what was the big difference between, wheeling the 5-car in practice while Kyle Larson was out playing Indy driver? And he said one of the biggest differences was stepping out of the car and seeing the team owner there. And a lot of people are putting this blame on the owners for shutting down, which isn't a shock. Anytime you shut down any fucking business, it's usually because of the owners, unless there's police involved, right? So I don't know where you place the blame on this, but or if there's any blame to be placed, because this is just fucking life. The business model didn't make sense for them. The guys didn't want to dedicate the time, whatever it is. So Stewart-Haas Racing, a fixture in this since 2009 with 2 Cup Series champs, which was Tony Stewart in 11, Kevin Harvick in 2014, and 69 Cup wins. Nice. I think they pulled out after 69. It's fucking awesome. I don't know. Let's look at the drivers. If you look on the Xfinity side first, Cole Custer was P3 in points until Austin Hill got the slap on the wrist. Now he's P2. And Riley Herbst, who's now, I guess, so he's still 7th in points. Those guys find a home easily next year in the Xfinity ranks. We know that Cole went back to the Xfinity ranks, and he's been pretty comfortable there. You think they find a home? Is that easy for them to get placed?
Yeah.
In Xfinity, yeah.
I think Cole's on the table for a Cup ride, and I think that would probably be his first priority. I think that will be his most likely landing spot, and I mean, I would like to think that he has a Xfinity opportunity should the Cup not work out.
You think Riley?
I'm not so confident on Riley, unfortunately.
And you're a good friend of his.
I'm more of a Riley fan than I am a Cole Custer fan. But I don't know. There's a lot of guys vying for a few seats. So.
What is your I don't know? You don't know about Xfinity, or you don't?
I think he will be fine in Xfinity.
Okay. Yeah.
I think.
I mean, I'm sorry, but he'll have a seat.
He will have a seat at the Xfinity level, probably in a pretty good ride, especially with the kind of carousel that is going around. We'll see where everyone gets off, but I think there will be at least a good opportunity for Riley in Xfinity, and hopefully maybe he surprises us and gets a Cup look. But I think there's a crunch for, obviously, as there always is, a lot of guys vying for a couple seats.
Before I ask you, what do you think about the Cup drivers in particular? And obviously, this is just guesswork on our part. There is no Spidey Scoops on this. Wait a sec. What did you do this weekend? That was not a Spidey Scoops. It was a Spidey something else. What did you do?
I have no idea what you're referring to. Yeah, I need some more
we were in
context.
a golf cart or something, and you said something that was profound. I was like, Spider. I'll think about it. But so just so you know, Bob Pockris reported that probably all 4 are already spoken for, but 3 of them he's pretty confident are going to Trackhouse, 2311, and Front Row. They haven't named what the 4th suitor has been, but people are saying that the 4th charter has been spoken for as well. So knowing that Trackhouse, let's just take it as gospel, that Trackhouse is picking up another charter, 2311 as well, and Front Row, which really started off the silly season with the McDowell story a couple of weeks ago. How do you feel about Josh Berry, who's now 82 points below the cut line, Noah Gragson, who's 105 points below, Ryan Preece, who's 142 points below the cut line, and finally Chase Briscoe, who's right on it. He's knocking on the door, being 11 points below the cut line. How do you guys feel these guys will do? Will they stay in the Cup? Was it something where, maybe Berry will then have to, go back down? What do you think, especially knowing who's going to be picking up these charters?
I think that Berry and Custer are going to end up at Front Row. Front Row is going to have a seat open with the exit of Michael McDowell at the end of this year, and it sounds like the Bob Pockris report suggests that they will be adding another one, so they would have 2 seats to fill. I think it's going to be Josh Berry and Cole Custer in the Front Row, and I think our guy, there's a lot of names that I'm
no, there's too many. Yes,
Chase Briscoe, our good friend Chase Briscoe, I think is going to end up in the Harrison Burton Wood Brothers 21 right now, which I could really get behind. I think he would be good, and hopefully in a Penske prepared car might be, a good spot for Chase, a guy that's been loyal to Ford. And then who was the guy?
Gragson and Preece. Where do you think they go?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I wasn't expecting Noah to end up in the 10 this year. So I guess where he goes next year, I probably won't be prepared or expecting either. There's been some talk about him going to RCR.
I think Gragson kind of feels like a Trackhouse guy a little bit.
Well, I mean, the inn is kind of full at Trackhouse, don't you think?
I mean, are they not buying a charter?
They're buying a charter, but they have.
Oh, but they
got to field Zane Smith and SVG. And by the way, I guess this isn't really a Spidey scoop, but some people that are close to the race scene have told me with 1,000% confidence that they are confident that the the charter that Trackhouse is acquiring will be for Zane Smith, not SVG. So that adds a whole wrinkle into this. And as Zane and I sat in the studio, I asked him, Zane, you're Cup racing next year, right? And he was pretty adamant that he was. So we'll see how that goes. Right now, if I had to predict, I would say Zane goes to the Trackhouse open car, which means the only one that I haven't predicted would be the 2311 charter, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And I think that will probably go to Corey Heim. I would love to see, give me all the chaos. Give me Denny Hamlin to 2311 at the end of this year. I think that would be sick for the drama.
It's coming eventually.
You got to think if he's forking over this much money, that's got to only fuel the thought and the wheels kind of spinning in that mindset. But
that's breaking a contract, right? I mean, because Denny did sign the contract at the end of last season, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
but at the same time, Tyler Reddick was under contract with RCR for another year, and what happened? He went that year and raced for 2311 the following. So shit can happen,
This whole charter situation must be so confusing for like a casual NASCAR fan, because it's like confusing for me as somebody who like pays pretty close attention to it. There's just so many moving parts, and I don't know. It's a little bit difficult to understand sometimes.
Wait, yeah, it's a lot to follow. What about RFK's also getting one, right?
No, so that hasn't been confirmed. The only thing that we are relatively sure of, if you want to take Pockris as gospel,
what were the three he said?
Are Trackhouse, 2311, and Front Row. So the fourth one could be RFK.
It's got to be.
Somebody did a Pockris burner or a fake account and said that it was Junior Motorsports, and that was shot down. that that he was going to come and buy this Cup charter.
Yeah.
I think Keselowski kind of shot it down though too. The RFK.
He did.
I think he was like, if anybody has 30K or 30 million lying around, let me know, and then we might get it.
Yeah, I mean it's not an easy type situation. None of you guys have mentioned Ryan Preece. Do you feel? I mean, I know we mentioned last week that we felt with this charter situation that he might be the odd man out, which we don't want to see either. I mean, but do you think he finds a place? Is it something where maybe he says, I'll go down to Xfinity even? I just want to drive.
I think Ryan would be a great lifer on the Xfinity or Truck Series. I think he can make a name for himself as one of the veterans that frequents that series. We see it in the Truck Series, like guys like Matt Crafton and all those guys. There seems to be an older demographic or an aging clientele racing against the young up and comers, and I think he would have great success doing that. So I'm not saying he's a bad driver by any means. I think unfortunately he's just the odd guy out.
Yeah.
Every team has their worst driver. You know what I'm saying?
And it's a weird situation where he's probably too good to go back down to Xfinity, but when you have those 4 guys as like free agents, I think he's the last guy you're kind of considering.
And it's not personal here, right? We're just looking at the standings and stuff like that. The metrics confirm what you're saying. I don't even know if we officially introduced him because he's only been the voice of God. But Moonhead, who does social with us alongside Quiggs, who are about to lose once football season starts, and Quiggs has to do a bunch of high-tech shit with a bunch of people. Is there any other kind of like whispers on where you're hearing any of these gentlemen, any of the 6 really, Cole Riley, Barry Gregson, Briscoe, or Preece, where they're going to wind up next season?
I've heard absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Preece, I feel like, is going to be the one who gets screwed over the worst out of this, just because I feel like he probably brings the least to the table as far as like a funding standpoint. Mm-hmm. I could see, I don't know where like the whole Truex deal stands right now, like when he's going to call it quits, but Gregson already has that relationship with Bass Pro. So that's just a theory. But
like
as far as that goes, like, I can't really think of anything else or anywhere else that would be like a great fit for him. I mean, he has experience with Toyota already back in the days, so maybe he ends up there. But I feel like the only one out of this that's going to end up without a ride or could potentially end up without a ride will be Preece. But he'll go back to tearing it up on modifieds and probably be a lot happier there.
Right.
So.
That's
cool.
Interesting. You said Gregson potentially, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
You floated the theory that hypothetically Gregson could join Joe Gibbs Racing, which would be an unreal dynamic given the fact that, the history of him and Ty Gibbs, and now they would be teammates. But I would very much welcome that storyline. That could be fun.
What about Kyle Busch? I mean, do you see Kyle Busch getting more and more fucking disgusted every week? Like I forget what he called. So I was listening to the radioactive thing before they shut down Race Hub. And I can't remember what the hell Kyle Busch was calling people, but he was so fucking frustrated going through lap traffic and whatnot. Is there a chance he hangs it up? I mean, obviously, we're just looking at older people, so I go Kyle Busch and Martin Truex. But I don't know. With this silly season happening earlier than usual, right? This is huge, right? It affects the rest of the season. Was it good? How about this for a question? When I used to have to hire and fire people way back in the day when I meant something, there was an argument on whether you should fire people on a Monday or a Friday, like whether you fire somebody on a Friday and they feel even madder because you had them work the full week, and it's all semantics, right? Because I could just fire them on the following Monday. Do you think that Stewart-Haas doing this so early in the season is good for these people that are now essentially treating even the people in the their engineers, their fabricators, all this stuff, they're essentially looking at the rest of the season as an audition for the next gig, right? I don't think anyone's going into the next race with, let's win one for fucking Stewart-Haas. Let's win one more. Let's fucking try to get us a little bit more, recognition so somebody hires us. And that's it. Fuck Stewart-Haas. I got to look out for number one because that's what they're doing. And again, no animosity towards it. That's business. So the timing of it, doing it this early in the season as opposed to later, is that cool? Is it unheard of? Does it fuck with everything for the rest? Because we're going to talk about Stewart Haas drivers, and we're going to say, and by the way, they don't have a seat next year for the rest of this season. How do you feel about the timing?
I think the timing was very fair. I think as much as Kevin Harvick was disappointed and knocking on the door for answers for a lot of his drivers, including ones that he represents, you kind of have to give Stewart Haas an opportunity to see what this season is about. You know, they had the forever, and then like Kevin Harvick said, it was forward, and they had a whole marketing scheme with this new lineup, which, like I said on this show, I was excited for. Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, Chase Briscoe, Ryan Preece, those are all 4 guys that I like, so I was excited for it. Unfortunately, they probably felt that they didn't have the amount of success this year as they would have liked, given the last little effort that they had for this, and they seemingly got less and less involved as the season rolled on, and then explored the sale opportunity. But I think this is the great time to do it. We still have plenty of time for these guys to, like you said, Large, audition and prove themselves the rest of the year, and 2, hopefully get another job lined up for next season with the remainder of the season. I think this would have gotten really toxic and bad business-wise if this were like, come playoffs, and they still didn't have any clarity on what was happening. Yeah. And Kevin Harvick, week after week, was mixing in, another jab and only getting more angry and animosity as the answers and unknown situation growed.
It's not good for, like, team morale. Like you said, they're not going to be, like, really, like, a big group that are trying to win for the team. But from, like, a human level, I think it's a lot easier for people to know they need to start looking for a job while they still have one for a little bit than to get blindsided, and then if they came out at the end of the season, you're like, you knew this all season, you didn't tell anyone. So yeah, I think it's kind of what you have to do.
I also think they're probably, sorry, Larch, I think the Stewart Haas employees are probably a little bit relieved. We've been hearing about this narrative, the storyline, for like seemingly the last couple months, and now they finally, have confirmation. As much as it sucks that the dust is settling and their jobs may be changing, they no longer have to like live in fear, and now they can just kind of move on with their life and get on to the next thing.
Going from a downsize to a shutdown is never easy. So yeah, we wish them all the best. Obviously, I just did the Joe Gibbs, the JGR. We did a tour of their headquarters this week, and it's massive. Just the square footage of the building that we're walking around. We're down on the floor inside all these different, divisions and whatnot. It's massive how many people will be put out of work. We saw that kind of last year where Spider and I had visited Kyle Busch Motorsports, and that was after the announcement that they'd be shutting down, or selling rather. So, so it's not easy. But yeah, and I don't even know if a guy like Priest then doesn't give a shit about his equipment anymore. Like if it would help him, I don't know. There's a lot of permutations and combinations that are involved with how people act at a company knowing that they're not going to be there in a couple of months. Like, I'm stealing toner. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm stealing fucking toilet paper. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm robbing the place for all that I fucking can because they're not going to be around. All right, let's talk about go ahead. I'm sorry.
One more thing. Looking back on it, just something that happened like 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Spider put, I think, Josh Berry, Gragson, Briscoe, and Preece all in a group chat and took a selfie with Tony Stewart when he was in the office and said, hanging with the boss man. They might have even known at the time. Did you get any responses to that?
Yeah, I was. They were, but I actually, it's even worse, man. I told them. Tell me what you said. I sent them a photo and said, just told Tony Stewart to supermax my drivers, like a supermax contract, like in the NBA, And yeah, and Noah Gragson replied, "What the fuck is a supermax?" And I said, "The contract kind, not the prison kind." So, yeah, they did all reply, but it little cringe in hindsight.
Yeah.
And Briscoe's like, I mean, not to try and make this a human interest story any more than it is. Like, Briscoe's pregnant with twins. That always, it's the worst when it rains it pours, right? So, Yeah, so we're pulling from everyone to get other odds. We have to say just by the numbers too that Briscoe seems like he's the most safe out of the group.
I hope so. I don't know that everyone would agree with that, but
No?
in my brain, that's what I'm
like
hoping for.
Gregson's had a significantly more successful season than Briscoe.
Well, that's
And
the
I know
thing.
the points aren't there, but
Gregson and Barry both have. To me, I only value Briscoe because, one, he's the guy, to be honest, I've known and been friends with the longest, but also because he's the most tenured veteran guy at Stewart-Haas. Again, that team doesn't even exist after the end of the season, but he's also the only one of those guys to get a win and make the playoffs. So I think there's some value, and I think a lot of people are kind of quick, at least on the messaging boards, from everything I'm seeing after following this news, is that Gregson and Barry are seemingly the safest. But I would argue that Briscoe should be because, like I said, for the fact that he's got to win.
yeah.
So I do think Briscoe is the safest. I think he'll end up at the 21. That seems to be like the general theory amongst everybody. But I do think that Barry and Gregson will probably have the best shot at a like top tier ride. Not saying the 21's bad, because I guess we'll see once they can Harrison Burton what Briscoe can do in it. But I still feel like Gregson and Barry probably have a chance at ending up at one of the elite organizations as opposed to like one of the ones that's kind of on the.
They feel like the young guns kind of, even though Barry's like 33, they're kind of the new guys that have had pretty good success since they've been in.
Oh, and he's got Dale backing him
Exactly.
too.
Yeah.
So like that, when you got Dale Jr. telling everybody to hire you, that goes a long way.
Dale came on the show and he gave rave endorsements of Josh Barry. Actually, both those guys, Josh and Noah, if I'm not mistaken. I think he complimented Noah as well. So yeah, it's those guys have the top guys endorsing him.
And then Harrison Burton. I mean, we don't hate Harrison Burton, but we just seem to be saying he's gone. What happens to that young man?
I hate watching him
point
wreck.
standing, he's not doing very well. But go ahead. What?
I hate watching him wreck, and that's seemingly every week, and that's disappointing because I like the kid. He's a nice enough kid, and I like rooting for him. I think it's a fun team, and he's a nice enough kid that it's he's easy to root for. But it's tough when you see the performances week after week, and seemingly no improvement is just so unencouraging. So you almost kind of have to demand someone else, especially with, like we said, our guy Ryan Preece's job's in jeopardy. If not the other 3 or 6 drivers we mentioned, it's kind of like a sport. You gotta put up or get out. And unfortunately, I don't think he's had much success in this 21 car.
There was a point where I thought he was going to be like the next big thing.
Yeah,
but no, he wasn't.
Yeah, you were dead wrong. All right, so let's talk about this weekend. We'll start with Chase Elliott, right? So on Saturday, Chase Elliott started 30th, but won the BetMGM 300 at Charlotte in his first NASCAR Xfinity Series start of the season. Congratulations to him. I think most people, especially people who are angry with the way that the Cup Series race had ended, would say that the Xfinity Series put out a better product this weekend than Cup. Chase had said that a lot of it was his pit strategy and whatnot, but it was a real fun race to watch. And then we'll go on to the Coke 373. So Ty Gibbs, it's his first time on the pole for Cup. And then the guy that I was betting on, Tyler Reddick, he got taken out to the woodshed. Made unapproved adjustments to the underwing after inspection. So he had to drop to the rear of the race, do a pass-through penalty at the start, begin the race on scuffed tires, lose pit selection, and have the car chief ejected. They took Tyler Reddick and they donkey punched him. William Byron won the first stage. He's got multiple race wins. We know that this year, but I was surprised to see that there was first stage win in the season.
That was surprising.
Yeah, right?
I was stunned to hear that stat, actually.
I had to go check it because I thought I'd heard it wrong.
That's exactly what I thought, so thank you for confirming.
Spider, I have to think about what we were talking about in the golf cart when I said it's no longer Spidey Scoops, it's Spidey something. Spidey Stats. You threw out a fucking stat.
So here's what it was. And I'm very upset and disappointed with the way the race ended this weekend, obviously. And it goes back to stage 1. Large, you just said William Byron won stage 1. William Byron and Ty Gibbs, that race we saw for stage 1 was incredible. And that led me to believe that was going to be the race for the win later on in the race. And unfortunately, the rain and Mother Nature and NASCAR and the Air Titans had other plans for that, unfortunately. I thought that Ty Gibbs was going to be the 8th driver to get his first Cup Series career win at the Coke 600, joining the likes of guys like Jeff Gordon and some other names I'm neglecting to remember rather off the top of my head. But that's why I was really disappointed. I thought that Ty Gibbs had a really good shot, especially with the long race, and to see it end like that was wildly disappointing. So that was my stat.
Spidey stats.
Yeah. And honestly, it wasn't my stat. I saw it online somewhere. So whoever actually compiled that, hats off to you. I wish I could recite and give you proper credit.
Chris Bell won the second stage under caution. If you were mad at that, just wait. Byron had a highlight reel where he passed in the grass. He had dive bombed as Tyler and Ty Gibbs were door to door. I think Ty Gibbs afterwards says, "I'm gonna wreck fucking 45 next time he comes near me." So, but it was probably the highlight of the race. But what did you guys think? I mean, it was a fun race to watch until it wasn't. Agreed? Like it was.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like you said, the Byron pass in the grass was lit, and then, like I said, the lead, the stage 1 race for the lead, as they kind of battled it out, him and Ty Gibbs was incredible too. So, I wanted to see more, and I love the fact that the whole idea of the Coke 600 is the longest race. There's strategy associated with it, so to see it cut short at the first opportunity was really disappointing.
There was 21 lead changes among 10 drivers. There was 7 caution flags for 46 laps. But at the end, under caution, Bell gets his 8th career win, his 2nd of the season. Brad K was chasing him down at the time. Brad K finished P2. It was good for me to be there because I happened to be wearing a Ream shirt. So a bunch of people as I was walking out was like, yeah, Chris Bell. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm a fucking womb to the tomb guy with him. But it just happened to be the cheapest one I can get at JGR. So counting, and this is another thing, people are saying how NASCAR is so top heavy with the same drivers winning as it was at the beginning of the season, and particularly with a couple of different manufacturers because Ford was shut out, but with a couple of companies winning too. But counting the All-Star race, the last 8 races have had 8 different winners. I had to check that too because it sounded like it was a little bit skewed. I don't know. Do you want to talk about how disappointing people were with it right now? Because we certainly can. Or you want to wait for... Let's talk about it now. So when this thing got called because of the weather, Spider and I were at the track. And we could talk about our experience at the track in a second. And there were literally tens of thousands of people. I was downstairs. I think you were still up in the suite, Spidey Suites. But there were tens of thousands of people in the, underneath the bleachers with myself and Manoli. We were smoking a cigar at the time, just ready to go back out there. And that's who got fucked the most, right? The people who showed up at Charlotte. We got to the racetrack at before 11 o'clock. So, like, we were there for 12 hours already. We were there with a couple of guys who were veterans, so we would drop them off at the Gold Star luncheon and whatnot. So we got there pretty early. We were there for 12 hours. So it's a big-time investment. I know there were some people with kids there who maybe weren't able to stick around. Maybe the concession stand people weren't motivated or compensated to stick around after a certain time. But there were literally tens of thousands of people aching to get back into their fucking seats to watch the rest of this race. And all of a sudden, it was called. There was talk about whether or not they were purposely trying to hold off doing it just so Larson could get into the seat. But then once Larson got there, he seemed to have brought the rain with him. It's when it was called, so maybe that goes out the window. What could they have done better? Why did they do this? Chris Bell was asleep in his bus when he was told that he had won this race. He was about to nod off. So it took him by surprise, took a couple of drivers by surprise as well. What could they have done better? And, talk about it. Talk about the ending and whether or not you guys are mad.
I think they should have called it immediately. To me, I feel like they kind of knew that they were not going to be able to do it, especially given that I don't really buy the excuse that it was too humid. It just felt like they were looking for an opportunity to end the race and call it at the first opportunity, which kills me to say. But I don't know. I don't know if it was a city ordinance thing and the law enforcement didn't want to be there with 100,000 drunk fans until 2:30 a.m. when the race potentially could have ended. But I think that they could have they could have, one, gotten it off, and two, like I said, if they were adamant about not finishing it, they should have called it and been transparent up front. It sounded like the whole, even calling the race was a debacle. Chris Bell was informed by the TV broadcast, I think. Denny Hamlin was like, he knew when they cut the air tightens off that the race was going to be called. Like, it just seemed like kind of a shit show. So I think they need to be way more transparent and just straight up announce what's going on. And it felt like I said, I think they could have made a better effort to finish this race, and they should have. We're lucky, Large, that we are blessed with Barstool and the sponsorships associated that get us to these races and the suites that you mentioned so many times, and I don't take that for granted. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people that were at that race that didn't have that opportunity, that weren't funded and paid money out of their hard-earned pocket to go to this race with their family, with their friends, only to see it under that capacity. I was prepared to get on this show this week and call Charlotte the most underrated NASCAR track on the whole circuit. I think it's got a great combination of racing, hospitality, and a great city alongside it. It's not out in the sticks where that's the only attraction in town. Everything about Charlotte is perfect. And then that happened. So I'm wildly, wildly disappointed. And I feel really bad for the people that and put a lot of money and hard work into traveling there. I don't know. I mean, I'll survive. But
why didn't they tell and we're not saying that they lied.
Oh,
Moonhead,
I am.
Moonhead's
I totally am.
Moonhead's about to say.
Chapped.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Moonhead. Go.
My ass is still chapped. They said, and I want to read the actual quote here so I get it right. In the post that came out at 11:30 p.m. on the dot. Due to inclement weather, which had stopped, high humidity, and the likelihood of resuming action after 1 a.m., which I think is a load. I think they'd have been racing at midnight at the latest. With the track drying process, the race has been declared official. I am most offended with the fact that they think we're stupid and that they think we're going to buy that. If they would have just come out and given us some corporate bullshit about logistics or the broadcast or not wanting to pay people, not having money, the cops being mad, literally anything but what they said, I'd have gone to bed upset, but whatever, move on. It happens. You can't control the weather. But the fact that they blamed humidity
It's crazy.
on ending this race, when I have seen them race at Daytona at 2 a.m, I've seen they put Austin Dillon in the grandstands at like 2 a.m. at Daytona. Nobody thought anything of it. But we can't race at midnight because it's a little humid on Memorial Day weekend in Charlotte, where all the teams are 20 minutes away.
It's crazy. Everyone had the next day off. It's like a holiday weekend. You had the whole motorsports audience following delayed Indy 500. Everyone's funneled into watching your sport, and that's what we show them. I think we absolutely whiffed this weekend, unfortunately. And again, I want to say I'm not taking for granted the unreal opportunity and experiences that NASCAR shows us week after week every time we're at the track. It just sucks that both this week and the Daytona 500 this year have been impacted by rain. I don't know, and I know they've never, ever restarted a race that's more than halfway, but there has to be a better, like the following day, I'm saying. If there's rain, they just call it. If the race is more than halfway.
That's a whole nother controversy.
That's a whole nother thing.
If they do that.
Well, this is the Coke 600. The whole beauty and crown jewel event surrounding it is that you're running 600 miles. I understand, obviously.
And Spider, it's the biggest opportunity for people to get points during the season.
Absolutely.
Right? It means
more.
Biggest single day for anybody to pick up any kind of points during the season.
And even Christopher Bell, to hear him to say, like, I never thought I would be declared the winner long after it stopped racing. Like, he felt like it was a Mickey Mouse win. I don't know. The whole thing just left a bad taste in my mouth. And I hate to be critical of something that I love so much, but I feel like in order to make it better, you have to be critical sometimes. And unfortunately, the last 2 weeks, I cannot sit here and tell you that I stand behind the judgment calls that have been made with this race and the Coke 600, as well as the Ricky Stenhouse penalty. I think both of those have been way too trigger happy.
But why would they do it then? Like, so
that's my thing. I'm going to give NASCAR the benefit of the doubt here and say that there was another factor or pressure, outside pressure, forcing their hand, whether it be the broadcast, whether it be the TV network saying, hey, we're not sticking around for this, get off the air, which doesn't make sense to me because they went to the studio for an hour and did a studio show. If that were the case, they would have just went off the air immediately. The other thing, potentially, as Moon had mentioned, and I'm a Blue Lives Matter guy, I want to say that loudly right now, maybe potentially there was a logistical headache where they did not want 100,000, 80,000, however many thousand drunk NASCAR fans trying to get out of there, trying to get home safely, and the logistical nightmare that might have ensued late into the wee hours of the morning, which again, I can't defend either because it's the following day's a holiday. No one...
And it wouldn't have been as bad as they expected because if you are going that late, naturally people are leaving earlier. You'll probably have half the amount of people.
Right.
It's not as crazy getting out of there as that.
People stayed to boo.
Yeah.
I mean, you could hear the boos when you know they woke up Chris Bell and got him out there. I just can't fathom. So Moon took umbrage because he said they were treating us like idiots. There is no reason for them to treat fans like idiots. I think there's something that we're missing. Like, if they were to say to me, Large, we can't police this. To your point, Spider.
Right.
Oh, you're right.
Blame it. Point the finger.
Yeah.
No one's upset if you blame it on
the city of Charlotte turns off the water at midnight, or there's noise ordinances in and around Concord where it is, right? Like there's noise ordinances that we have to. I would be able to take just because we were there and we saw what looked like a pretty fucking dry track, like what they had run, and you get that whole stat. As soon as another raindrop falls, it'll take another 40 minutes to dry the track. So they did have more than 40 minutes, twice as much time, at least. And it looked like they did a good enough job. And the humidity it's a weird thing when there's so many other factors that led it. If they said, listen, we can't have all these veterans here past, they have too many prosthetics that they have to go and get their fucking anything, I think would have probably placated just about every. They would still be mad. I mean, there's nobody is more whiny cunts than NASCAR fans on social media. I've learned that real quick.
And I'm joining them this week.
Yeah, no.
I mean, proudly one of them this week.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I don't mean that. That's not a dig at anyone in particular. It's a dig at everybody. And so just to placate those people with something that's seemingly more true or certainly more impactful would have probably have solved all this shit. And to your point too, Spider, Ricky should fight it. Ricky should fight that, and if NASCAR sort of lets it go away, which I think they might.
Listen, if we don't get loud about this shit, it's just going to keep happening.
Squeaky wheel. Yeah, it gets the grease.
I hate being the guy that's just a Karen, but the reality of the situation is the longer we tolerate this shit, it's going to just keep this. The unprecedented nature of the $75,000 fine is going to become commonplace. We need to picket outside NASCAR HQ on some Jan 6 shit.
Quiggs, I want to talk to you about it in one sec, but let's talk to the guy who knows absolutely nothing about NASCAR. Manoli, what did you think?
First off, just going.
By the way, Manoli's been to 2 races. Daytona, it's a fucking abortion, and then this. I think it's Manoli.
I wanted to say, I feel like, unfortunately, I think we all have a small part to play in this, along with Kyle Larson, who seemed to bring the storm with him, because Spider was preaching how he thinks he's cursed because it got rained out. Uh-huh. I think I'm cursed because I'm now 0-3 with NASCAR races. Couldn't make it Talladega. Daytona got washed out.
Right.
This gets washed out. I'm reviewing the footage for the vlog. By the way, vlog's going out Friday covering this Memorial Day weekend race at the
awesome.
Coke 600.
Nice.
Reviewing the footage. Start of the day, we dropped off ZBT crew at that brunch, and I'm on you, asking you how the day is going to go. You're like, we're in beautiful Charlotte. They're going to get brunch. We're going to get some drinks, and not a cloud in the sky, not a drop of rain in the forecast. Fast forward, a little foreshadowing, and we're getting dumped on, and now NASCAR's canceling the race.
And then when we were hitting a cigar, that's when I got the text from Moonhead. It is pouring here. How far are you from the track, Moonhead?
About 30 minutes, 35 minutes.
Yeah, he's like, it's fucking pouring here. And we saw some clouds, in the distance. But, and by the way, so they started racing you change your strategy and whatnot. They started racing like drivers who, and as teams who were trying to get it in before the rain. Like they did start racing like that. And by the way, can we agree though? Let's give some credit where credit is due. The right guy won, right? Like Chris,
No.
if you had to do this for the right reasons, the cops had to go. Right, Chris Bell had a pretty. Everyone's arguing that Brad Kay probably had the fastest car, but Chris Bell was the most dominant person out there that day. Don't you agree? Or
No,
Criggs, you seem like you just ate something sour because I gave Chris Bell a compliment.
It's
What do you
just
think?
such a long race that so many things can happen in that.
Yeah,
it's tough to say, and I don't know. Like Christopher Bell's so boring. It's just like
I know, but
it's
if it
the
was
perfect
called
way
for the right
like,
reason, if it never stopped raining, I don't. Because let's say it was like a pit strategy where Shane Van Giesbergen led that race for 2 laps. And I know it wasn't at that time because pit strategy were such. But let's say he would have been called the race winner. That would have been fucking unfair.
Yeah.
But Chris Bell had the lead 6 times for a total of 90 laps. The
Yeah,
next closest to that was Ty Gibbs 4 times for 74 laps. William Byron 5 times for 49 laps. So it seemed like even
by
though
that
we don't agree with
metric,
it,
I mean, I see where you're coming from, but I can't sit here and say that it was his race, like the rightful guy won. To me, I would have, and maybe I'm biased because I had a bet on it, but I would have preferred to see a pole winner Ty Gibbs win the race, especially, I don't know, like if there's a deserving car. From what we saw, he earned the position, and who's to say that track position doesn't mean more in the 200 miles that they erased in the remainder of the race. So Chris Bell it was his turn. He's not saying he was the guy.
You win a rain-shortened race, it's your win. You deserve it, I guess. But I don't know. It's just one of those races. Like Coke 600 is so long, so many things can happen, and it's tough to say that he's like deserved it. I don't know. I think everybody it left like a emptiness, it not being finished, and maybe could have been finished.
we'll talk about Larson in a second, right? But we're going to do kind of over-unders for this week. I'm going to start with the Nobody's Cooler segment brought to you by Arctic. I got this Arctic cup in front of me. Spider and Quiggs got it down there too. Every housewife has these goddamn things on soccer sidelines. Arctic makes the best one, so throw out your other one and buy one from Arctic. They make premium coolers and drinkware engineered to perform and overbuilt to last year after year. Ultra tough coolers like the one Spider and Quiggs are rocking right now. Ultra light wheeled coolers that we saw last week can get hitched to the back of your car responsibly and driven over 100 miles an hour. Soft pack coolers that are tough, waterproof, and float so you can take them on the road and the water. And then they're insulated drinkware, which is par excellence, the best that I've ever had. Arctic is now available at Walmart, so head to your local store to shop in person. And don't forget, Arctic Outdoors. Arctic Outdoors is the official cooler and drinkware of NASCAR. Not just coolers, not just drinkware, they got it all. Head to arcticoutdoors.com, check out more. That's RTIC outdoors.com, arcticoutdoors.com. So I think that even though we're kind of shitting on them right now, I'm going to give Nobody's Cooler to NASCAR this weekend because of their treatment of the troops. I tell you all the time, I never feel more patriotic than when I'm at NASCAR races. And this week, I had a fucking freedom erection you could have rested a cheeseburger on, particularly after that second stage, which ended under caution. But once they came back, everyone hit pit road and they turned off their engines for the moment of silence. And this was before any of the madness happened later on. Everyone was still happy and enjoying the race, and it was awesome. It's for people who haven't been to races live, shame on you. Charlotte's pretty loud. It's a pretty loud place. You know, for not being a short track, it's a pretty loud place. To all of a sudden see that place be silent and reverent right in the middle of what should have been, a 600-mile race was fucking awesome. And all the little things that they did for the vets throughout the afternoon, right through the intros and all that shit, man, I don't see any other sport go out of its way like that. Other sports do, recognize Memorial Day, but I think NASCAR does it better than anybody else. So let's give credit where credit is due, and that's the coolest thing that I saw all fucking week. I don't think you guys have any problems with that, right? I mean, that's It's
Love it.
absolutely awesome the way that they do it. What jumped out at you before we start to talk about Larson and stuff like that? Anybody get a gold star? I shouldn't just say gold star because that's stupid. Does anybody get a star this week from you guys as far as the over-unders?
Yeah, two guys I'll give you. And Josh Berry, I thought he did a good job with the top 10 finish. And then second, Justin Allgaier finished 13th in a car that he wasn't really – I don't know actually what the internal discussion was at Hendrick Camp, if Justin was prepared to actually race all weekend or if he was a little surprised when he learned that Larson was prioritizing the Indy 500. I got to imagine he knew and he had a lot of heads up, but still impressed with him getting a 13th place. And who's to say that he doesn't – I mean, Larson doesn't jump in the car and end up winning this race because of the position that Allgaier put him in. Another storyline that we unfortunately didn't get to see play out. So
did you hear Allgaier on the radio, Spider? Did you hear this little? He was like, "This car is driving so fantastic. I can't wait till Kyle just jumps in it and cuts through all this traffic."
Oh,
and
really?
wins this race. Yeah, that's what.
But I love that he said that because
Yeah.
I was always interested if he was going to be like, "Fuck, I'm doing so well, like let me keep wheeling it," or if he's like, "Hey, I got the best driver in the world, like waiting for me to come save my ass, and I don't got to run 600 miles. I can only, I only got to do like." I only got to pitch 3 innings here, and then the closer comes in, and we get the win.
I think when Amarola had to jump out and Denny jumped in the car that one time, Amarola was a little bit steamed about it. But
That's
you're right.
what I mean. The president is
exact
usually
opposite.
like, "Fuck you, I want to finish this."
Yeah. So we saw him, and again, this is a luxury that we had. Spider and I happened to be walking by the Hendrick Hauler when Allgaier walked out, and wearing the fire suit and stuff like that, and he looked overwhelmed. Right, it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. It didn't seem like he was about to take on a task that was the easiest in the world, and certainly wasn't. But yeah, I think he did a good job inside and outside of the car. Anybody else impressed with anything?
No, I mean those are the guys that stood out to me. I don't want to redo the whole top 10. So I'll
Is Brad
give you.
K an over or under, Spider? Brad K picks up another second place finish, so that's his.
Yeah, I
his
would say.
Has to be an
third,
over.
second
Yeah,
place
he's got
finish.
to. He's got to be an over. He's been running well.
Started 30th.
And the momentum has been great. Yeah, did he start 30th?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
He's the only Ford in the top 10 for regular season points right now, but I'm just talking about the kissing your sister type thing. P2 at Texas, P2 at Talladega, now P2 at the 600.
I think
what
he'll
we all
take
think
that all
is-
day.
Okay. So
I
we'll have
think-
him as an over. Do you mind if I
Yeah.
throw Trump in there as an over? I
Yeah,
know that
please.
some people fucking hated that he was there.
No.
But the place, whether or not you like Donald Trump, I don't give a fuck personally. It doesn't really matter to me. Politics, particularly yours. People were pumped. It was kind of cool watching the fucking motorcade come in. The whole deal. And they shut down cell service, or at least it looked like they did, while he was there for whatever security reasons that they have, which kind of fucks people like us who are trying to send out content
Yeah, it was
from the
tough.
track. But it's seemingly all worth it. So, and then I got the call while we were down in the lobby having a smoke from a buddy of mine, Chris, and he was like, "You want to meet Trump?" And so I was like, "Yeah, cool. That'd be awesome." And Chris is this guy that I know is very, very eccentric. Like the last time I'd gotten a call from him, he'd given me an invite to hop on a private jet and go to some place called Rock Island Auctions in Texas to bid on Napoleon's sword. And I think they paid like $260,000 for it. So those are the type of friends that I have that I don't like to share with you guys. So I'm going to like some fucking black tie event tonight with him in New York. But he gave me the call. "Hey, you want to see Trump?" So I was like, "Manoli, I got to watch this fucking phone in case he calls me back." So I had to give him my wife's name and all that kind of stuff. But then Donald Trump left because apparently his hair is soluble in rain. So I didn't get to see him, but I was this fucking close. But I thought that was kind of cool.
Did you see the screenshot I sent?
No.
So I'm in Portugal when all this is happening. So I'm
No biggie.
just getting, and I see I think it was like breaking 9/11, just one of those news things, and it was a C-SPAN clip, and it's like Donald Trump at the NASCAR race, and then the first shot is just Paul Swan taking a selfie with him. It's a great pic.
Yeah. What's up, Manol?
I actually have my first over over under.
Go ahead.
For this year. Over. NFL MVP Lamar Jackson just at the NASCAR race, the Coke 600, just pulled up.
That's sick.
Yeah. I think it's cool. Like, so they tend to do that. Like with, other than like Alvin Kamara, who's actually embedded in the sport. It's always wild to me to see these random guys, particularly in the NFL. When we went to Nashville with the Rubbin is Racing guys, there were a couple of dudes who were there from the NFL too. They just tend to show up. And if you're at the right place, the right time, you can kind of hang out with them.
We're the Rubbin is Racing guys.
I'm sorry, with the Bussin' with the Boys guys. Bussin' with the Boys and Rubbin is Racing collabo. Would you guys say on the underside, do you put Kyle Larson there?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, not to keep harping on.
He puts himself there.
NASCAR. He did his part. You know what I mean? He made every effort to be there, and he was there. It just happened to be that the rain arrived simultaneously to him. So, he made every effort. I mean, I shouldn't say that because he prioritized the Indy 500, but he wanted to be there racing at the first opportunity, and that he did. Unfortunately for him, it was raining when he arrived, but he did make an effort.
Nobody's mad that he chose the Indy 500 over this.
No.
I know they put a lot of time and effort into what he did, but I know I'm being ignorant with it too, but the whole week, my priority is the 600. And then when he got there, boots on the ground in Indianapolis, that narrative changed. And, I'm going to stick around here for the delay and see what happens with the Coke 600. And now we're going to talk about whether or not he gets a waiver, which I'm sure is all but guaranteed that he has it, although nothing official has been announced at the time that we're taping this. Nobody's mad that he did make that choice for the Indy 500.
The only thing I'm upset about is the fact that he wasn't just upfront about it. He should have just originally said, like, hey, I intend to run the Indy 500. That's my main priority this week. I know that probably wouldn't have been a good look for his NASCAR fans and Hendrick Motorsport, but in the same breath, it seemed like Rick Hendrick and his team supported him in that decision to prioritize the Indy 500. So I think it would have been better for him to just be like, hey, I'm planning on racing the Indy 500. If I can make the Coke 600, great. But I don't know. But that also he might have been doing lip service to prevent any, headache with the waiver.
No, I mean, yeah, there's two sides of the story. Is there a chance he doesn't get a waiver?
No.
Yeah, I think there's zero chance. They got to give it to him. I mean, although if you told me is there zero chance that Ricky Stenhouse gets $75,000 fine or that, we cancel a race due to humidity, I don't know. So I shouldn't say zero.
That is the thing which maybe you guys talked about last week when I was in here, I don't know. But NASCAR can't be punishing people for things that they heavily promote on social and kind of use as a selling point for the sport. You can't be having so much coverage about how awesome it is that Larson's doing both these races, or how post 8 angles of a fight and then be like, but we don't want this.
But let me ask you something, Quiggs. The people who post that on NASCAR, the social media people who post that, have nothing to do with the rules committee. The rules committee does not tweet on behalf of NASCAR.
Yeah, but it's the same
every time somebody does a
organization.
fucking illegal hit on a quarterback or anything like that, the NFL will play it over and over again, and then or something that a player gets ejected for. It gets played over and over again.
Those are all negative things, though, Large. To me, this is encouraging your athlete to do something that's one of the coolest things ever. You look at other sports leagues, when they have Olympic opportunity, those players are given a pass or excused absence or encouraged to go represent their team on the highest level. I see that as kind of similar to what Larson did with the Arrow McLaren-Hendrick partnership in the Indy 500. He brought a spotlight to Indy 500 as well as Coke 600 with this whole storyline and the surrounding press and media that surrounded it.
It's more like if a UFC fighter, which I don't think they're even allowed to, but let's just say they were, a UFC fighter did a celebrity boxing match on the side. The UFC is not promoting that celebrity boxing match, and if they did want to, there should be. They can't punish or fine their fighter for fighting in a different league if they're going to choose to promote it and say oh, he's doing 2 fights in one night, whatever. Awful example, but that
Terrible.
kind of yeah. I just started going and then I realized how dumb it was.
I tried to stick with you there because I'm in your corner.
Yeah, no, that was bad. But whatever. There's something in there that was a good metaphor for what
Did
I was
it bring
thinking.
more eyes to the Indy 500, or did it bring more eyes to NASCAR? Like, who benefit? And I know this is, we have 20/20 vision now because this all went down. But this was obviously more of a benefit for the Indy 500, right? I mean, more people tuned into that from NASCAR to watch that shit than Indy 500 fans, IndyCar fans in general, then tuned into the 600, partially because it was under a rain delay. Don't you agree?
100%.
So I don't know. I think that's a dramatic under, and also the penalty, which kicked him back to P18. Maybe his hand was forced, like you said, because they spent so much time camera work. Like, from what I understand, there was a full camera crew with Kyle Larson every time he went anywhere near an IndyCar, which seemed like they were setting it up to be the linchpin for the next Netflix special, perhaps. Not that there's another Netflix special or anything like that, but whatever they were going to do, they were going to do this gigantic story, and they still might, on Kyle Larson pulling the double. But, not being able to get into the car and not finishing outside the top 10, which was Pollyanna-ish. We know realistically he probably, he outperformed with the way that he had qualified and whatnot. But I don't know. I put him as a firm under. And I'm not crazy about the fact that he chose IndyCar over NASCAR in this. It just, I don't know why it just doesn't sit well with me.
The way it played out, it's definitely an under. But
Yeah.
in an alternate universe where the weather wasn't bad and he gets off that plane, hops in that car, like does a quick switch with all guy and drives through the field and wins the race, it's as big of an over as you can get.
Just look at it from like last year. SVG comes to Chicago, wins in his first Cup Series debut, and then a lot of people are like, I don't know. I feel like there were people like doubting how tough NASCAR is compared to other racing series. And then you see Larson go and run in the Indy 500 and pretty much prove and provide credibility that he is indeed one of the best drivers in the world, proving that he can run up front against guys that do that full time as their main discipline of racing. To me, that is incredibly valuable and should not be, taken for granted.
Yeah. I just don't think anybody's as mad about it if Larson drives it all in the Coke 600, which
what about
he didn't
the
get a
fact
chance
that-
because of the rain.
Yeah, but what about the fact that we knew then that the Indy 500 was going to be delayed, right? Like, that's the first thing that we knew as race fans. We knew the Formula One race sucked. Then we knew that the Indy 500 race was delayed, which means that he wasn't going to be able to make the Coke 600. So if it all would have went without delays, if it was beautiful all over the country, and Larson goes and gets a top 5 in the Indy 500, he lands in the chopper, and he walks in like a superhero, jumps in the car right after the anthem, and then does the whole 600 and wins it, or top 5 in that as well. Realistically, that could definitely happen because he's the best driver in the world. But that's not how it was going to go down, and we knew that before he hopped in an Indy car. So if he would have gotten off the chopper, and they would have let him race and jump in the seat for Little Gator, right?
Yeah.
Would there have been an asterisk? Because he technically didn't do the double. He did the double plus the, little less than half of the 600, right? He didn't do that 1,100-mile, super trek that everyone was fucking blowing him about.
Yeah. Maybe
Does that make sense?
Maybe an asterisk on the official meaning of the double, but just the badassness of doing that and having a guy that probably is putting you in worse track position that you'd put yourself and having to come back in less laps because you're coming in halfway through the race. I don't think there's an asterisk on how just sick of an all-time moment it would be.
Yeah, if anything, I think it's more impressive.
Yeah.
To do less?
No, to do, well,
Yeah, 'cause
in a
you're
weird way, yeah. because
working yourself out of a hole. Just it's saying that if Larson was driving at that point in the race where he would have hopped in, he'd probably have better track position.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're digging yourself out of a bigger hole in less amount of time, and you win that race. That's pretty historic.
Yeah, no doubt. You guys looking forward to next year?
Well, that's the thing. It sounds like as much as it was a multi-year, contract or whatever that they signed. It sounded like it was 2 years. Larson himself said that he hopes that it comes to fruition and he gets the opportunity again. I don't know. It sounds like it's a little closer to 50-50 than more of a yes than people think. So I'll be interested to see what happens. I think a lot depends on what happens with the waiver situation here and NASCAR's reaction to, this weekend.
I'd be shocked if he doesn't get a fucking waiver because
yeah.
Let's say hardcore NASCAR fans. Do you envision any of them? I'll ask Moonhead. Are they any hardcore NASCAR fans saying, "Don't give this guy a fucking waiver. He's a traitor to Cup racing. He chose them over us." Anything like that, or am I totally making that up? I might be.
No, because I mean, if there's no rain delay, he makes it with plenty of time. You know what I mean? And he can't control the weather. I think it's a win-win for everybody because it's going to bring eyes to IndyCar, like you said. I don't think the Indy 500 necessarily needs a NASCAR driver to be looked at as the biggest race, but it definitely helps. And then NASCAR is going to get a lot of attention with people following Larson from Indy and seeing how he does there. So I think they'll give him a waiver. I think they want to encourage it. I mean, Blaney said this week he wants to do it. I think Reddick said he wants to do it. So I think it would be a really bad move to discourage drivers from going and doing something this monumental because it's not going to rain every time. This was just literally worst case scenario where both races were impacted by rain.
Somebody write that down when we're in the exact same fucking situation next Memorial Day.
Does rain a lot at the Coke 600.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys then the last question before we move on. Actually, there's one person I wanted to add to the over because I cashed on Bowman being the best in Group D. That's his 5th straight top 10. So Spider had said last week, he's like, sometimes I don't recognize it, but the guy's putting together a pretty good season. He just needs to get a win, obviously.
Yeah, typically, we give out. I speak for myself. I typically give outright winners on the show. I'm a win first kind of guy. So if you're not winning for me, you're kind of an afterthought. I was not privy to how seemingly well Bowman's running. He's got 9 top 10s now, so that's. I think he leads the series in top 10s, but I stand on the fact that listen, the league's this is a series about winning. So unfortunately for him, he's still in my doghouse. He's still trying to get the monkey off his back. So I don't know.
Outside of Kyle Larson, and you threw around names like Blaney and Reddick, who would you like to see do it next year, either with Larson or solo? Not who's, I guess you can say who's most suited to do it, because Kyle Larson, I think, is the number one answer on who's most suited to do it. But who do you think you'd like to see try and pull off the double next year?
I'd like to see one of the Penske guys do it, Logano or Blaney, and that's only because Roger Penske and Team Penske's ties and history in both sports. I don't know. I think he would have Ryan Blaney would have a really good opportunity to win the Indy 500, I think, in a car prepared by Penske. So they seemingly win every IndyCar race I watch. So for that reason, I feel good about Blaney or any of the Penske guys, maybe aside from Austin Cindric. Not to call people out.
Let's send Cindric.
Anybody else?
Denny would be cool. First name that popped in my head was SVG, but that almost feels like we're not sending one of our own guys. That just feels like it's just like a guy that races kind of in everything. Denny would be really cool.
Moon, you got anybody?
The coolest one I've heard lately was Blaney saying he wants to do it with Scott McLaughlin, which would be cool because then they'd be bringing an IndyCar guy to the 600. So that'd be cool. I'd love to see Kyle Busch do it too. I know he's talked about it and Childress said he'd support it. So I think that'd be cool to see.
I would have loved to see that like 5 years ago.
Some BJ McLeod.
Yeah, that's my vote. I'm voting for BJ. Yeah,
an unsponsored IndyCar with charter money.
That'd be fucking awesome.
If he doesn't get
a no fear fire suit, you know what I mean? Like you see in fucking UFC events. But yeah, I'm gonna go on and we're gonna preview next week. But before we do, NASCAR wants to remind you it's coming back to Chicago this summer. 2 full days of racing and nonstop entertainment. 4th of July weekend, NASCAR is racing through downtown Chicago and through the iconic Grand Park. Entertainment-filled weekend with your favorite artists featuring, look at this fucking all-star lineup: Keith Urban, the Chainsmokers, the Black Keys, and Lauren Elena. The 2024 Chicago Street Race will be the most talked about event of the summer, so don't miss out on the thrill of NASCAR racing through the iconic streets of downtown Chicago. Purchase your tickets today for NASCAR Chicago Street Race weekend. And I got to be honest, I was there last year. The weather could not be any worse than it was last year, so let's give it another fucking run. And I think they got to iron out some of the kinks, because they were doing so many other fucking things. So I'm expecting this year's production to be absolutely gangbusters. Enjoy Illinois 300 is this Sunday at 2 p.m. on FS1, 1.25 mile track. The stage is going to be at 45, lap 140, and then they checker at 240. Gateways in Madison, Illinois, very close to St. Louis, close to the Gateway Arch. So they say they're running in St. Louis, but they're fucking lying. It was added to the Cup Series schedule in 2022, replacing one of the 2 races at Pocono Raceway. So we only have a little bit of empirical evidence on this one. And in 2022, Joey won, and Kyle Busch won in 23. Both races they won in overtime. So that's this Sunday. I think Xfinity is out in Portland. Trucks are racing in Gateway also. Let's pick some winners, guys. Let's pick in the tires. We're close to crowning an NBA champ, and with the action heating up on the court, it's even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner and official sports betting partner of the NBA. There's only so many games left, and DraftKings has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Don't miss out, or you'll have to wait until next NBA season to place your bets. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Bet on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your squad, and place your first bet. It's just that simple. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500. Just deposit at least $5, and you'll get a bonus bet back equal to your first bet if it doesn't hit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code Rubbin, R-U-B-B-I-N. That's code Rubbin for new customers to get a no-sweat bet up to $1,500 if your first bet doesn't hit. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. How are you guys feeling about this weekend? Who do you like? Who do you not like? I know you don't normally give out picks, Moon, but if there's something that jumps out at you, you can feel free to jump in. Otherwise, boys, take it away.
You want to go first, Quiggs?
First.
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean,
cool.
This one's a little weird where I just feel like I have no real feel for this track. They've just raced so few times there. Mm-hmm. But I guess going off the 2 races we have and how people have been doing this year, I like Byron plus 850. He hasn't had a ton of success on this track, but it feels like he can kind of win anywhere this year. Mm-hmm. 850 feels like a good number. And then Joey Logano, who kind of opposite, where he's had a lot of success at this track but hasn't had a lot of success this year. But I think his 2 finishes were first and third in the 2 races. He's plus 1,400, and he's got to get off the schneid at some point. So I like that. And then I have a 4 driver parlay for top 10. So all these guys in the top 10. So, yeah, something will go wrong. This won't hit.
Yeah.
But we'll go with the 2 guys who have historically been good here, Kyle Busch and Joey Logano. Mm-hmm. And then 2 guys who can just win anywhere and had good years with William Byron and Kyle Larson. So Logano, Busch, Byron, Larson, top 10, and that's plus 308.
I like it.
And that's all I got.
Spidey, you want to go or me?
Yeah, you go ahead.
So
I'm struggling this week.
No, that's totally fine. I'm gonna go Alex Bowman top 5 at plus 500. I think that's pretty good value. Ooh. So I'm gonna go do that. And the kid's been on a little bit of a roll, as we pointed out. We tend to overlook him. So top 5 plus 500. Sign me up, and I'm gonna do the same odds. Chris Buescher top 3 plus 500. Now, Buescher's been racing very well, so I'm gonna take those 2 guys as top 5s. Buescher top 3 plus 500. Bowman top 5 plus 500. I'm going to take an outright in the favorite with Denny. I like Denny this weekend, so I'm going to take him at plus 550. So those are my 3 bets. Spider, if you're still looking, is there anything that jumps out at you, Moon?
I have a I don't know what the hell my voice did there.
I don't know.
I
either,
have a
disgusting.
Yeah, that
shit.
sounded
It's
horrible.
Like
that was
oysters.
terrible.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, that was really bad. I feel like Larson's going to be just determined this weekend, even from like just not a betting standpoint. I don't really know where he sits on all that, but I feel like after last weekend, there's going to be a fire lit under his ass, and he's going to go out there and put on one of those Kyle Larson performances.
Yeah, I'm with you, Moonhead. In fact, I'm going to add Kyle Larson to my card as the outright winner of this race, plus 600 on DraftKings app. And then I've got 2 top 10s for you. Alex Bowman, who is 40-1 to win the race, which I think is a little intriguing right now. Obviously, as I've been quick to remind you week after week, he's in a big drought, but I still am intrigued by him getting out of that drought. So I've taken him a couple times this year, and I think top 10 for him, plus 150 is worth a look on DraftKings. So Bowman, like I said earlier, he's tied with William Byron for 9 top 10s this season, which is the most. And at plus money this week, I'll take it. And then right behind him, Noah Gragson. Eric Almirola in the 10 car finished here 5th in their last race here, I believe. So if there's any metric of that and the car being similar, I'll buy into that, especially with the way that Noah's been driving this year. He's been looking really good. So plus 200 for a top 10 for Noah, I'll take. So I got Bowman top 10, plus 150. Gregson top 10, plus 200. And Larson outright, plus 600. I really did like Quiggs's pick of Joey Logano. 14-1 right now is good, especially considering his past history at these 2 races.
If he's just the same Joey Logano he's been all
finished
season.
first and third in his 2 races here.
I know, but
can I throw Chase in there too? I'm going to throw Chase Briscoe in. Because, Spider, when you say Noah Gragson, top 10 plus 200, I'll take Chase Briscoe at those same odds plus 200, keeping in mind that those 2 guys are both fucking auditioning every week, right? They're driving for their careers right now.
Wait a minute. I got one other one.
Oh, here we go.
I got one other one, and I think I'm going to whale play this one.
Okay.
5 units.
And I shit on this guy on the show earlier, too. Austin Cindric, top 10, plus 600. Hear me out.
Okay.
In his 2 races here, he has finished 11th, and 13th. Knocking on the door. I think plus 600 for a top 10 on a track that's seemingly been good to him and the Penske cars. Penske has kind of sucked this year. Is this the week they break through and their cars are running up front? Give me Austin Cindric, top 10, plus 600. Add it to my card.
I like it.
So that's it for us for Rubbin is Racing. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I will remind you again, Friday we're going to drop the vlog from Charlotte. We had a great time down there. Thank you to the ZBT guys, particularly Kate. Kate, you could tell, was away from the kids for the first time. I mean, she was ripping darts and throwing down fucking bush lattes like you read about, and she's just fantastic. But also Chaps and Captain Cons. Thanks for coming down and enjoying the weekend with us. Our next stop, as far as by the way, this race, Spider, did you notice it more than any? I must have took 50 selfies with people. It was wonderful having people come by and be very complimentary about just about everything with the podcast except Quiggs, and it's been just kind of nice to see that. So please, Matchbox 20 fucking killed it, right?
Yeah.
The whole deal, it was perfect. But so thank you guys so much for doing that. Our next stop is going to be Nashville, I believe. The Nashville race is next, and then we'll have Chicago the week after that. So expect to see us. Quiggs, it's nice to see you back stateside. You were missed last weekend. You missed last week also. And that's it. Tune in next week on Rubbin is Racing.